And then under recognitions, Ms. Battle, the Technology Award, and then Dr. Cobb, the Cleanliness Award.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Tiller, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Our technology spotlight for the month of October goes to Marlboro County High School and Ms. Penny Oxendine, Ms. Davida McCall, Ms. Oxendine, Dr. Tiller, Dr. Hampton, Ms. Parsons, would you like to join them?
What am I supposed to do?
We're just going to congratulate her.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. McCall is going to describe Ms. Oxendine's class from a technology point of view. I do know that she uses a lot of technology with her students.
Good evening. Ms. Penny Oxendine is being awarded the Technology Spotlight for the month of October for her lesson that we observed where she used gaming through the website Kahoot. Her students played games through that website, and she also used an app called Peer Deck where she interacted with her lesson and changed things on her smartboard through her iPad as the students were answering questions and made them interactive with the lesson. So she's being awarded the Spotlight Award for the month of October for those wonderful things that she's doing in the area of instructional technology.
Photo thing. Okay.
Madam Chair, school board members, the Cleanliness Award for the month of October, given to date, first to the school buildings would be the Technology Hut. And for the school buildings goes to the School Discovery.
Anybody needs a cough drop tonight? And well supplied.
You can't win this one.
Do we have people who... Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Tweed. All right, thank you, Dr. Cobb. Next, we need approval of the minutes for the October 12th regular and special meeting on October, I said that wrong. We need approval of the minutes for the October 12th and for the regular and the special meeting, and then for the October 26th special meeting. If you all want to break that up, that's fine, or we can do them all together.
So moved, Madam Chairman, unless there's
All right?
someone who wants to
Does
modify
anyone
the minutes.
have a problem? All right. Is there a second? All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. And it's carried unanimously, Ms. Tweed. Well, there are no individuals or groups who wish to appear before the board. All right, individual items for the December board meeting. The first one is Care South Dental Program requesting the use of a room at the McCall School. And I believe there are two people here from Care South who have some handouts for you all.
Madam Chair, I think that's a separate category for if we have any items we would like to add for the December meeting.
They're just going to pass
And
out
then-
the things for you.
I understand, but the item for individual items for the December board meeting is a request of individual board members if we have items we would like to add. I think the things below that are to come after that.
I'm requesting that we vote on on allowing them to use.
I understand, you skipped over the individual items for the December board meeting. I have a couple of
Oh, did
things
I?
I would like to add for the December board meeting.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I sure did.
Okay. And these are just things
After
that-
this, I'll go back up. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Mr. Goff.
okay. Well, I
I
can
sure
do it.
did.
I can do it at the end of all this. That's fine. I just
I
wanted to make sure we
misread
did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you were saying that
No.
they shouldn't come up.
No, they're fine.
I'll be all right soon. Anyway, they have handouts for us. And those handouts, didn't mean to confuse you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
The handouts are comments from nurses and administrators in other schools.
In 2014, we saw about 5,000 visits alone in the schools. So that was 5,000 visits that the kids didn't have to miss school and 5,000 visits that parents didn't have to take off of work to take kids to the dentist. So it's been a very successful program so far. And we would love to have a pilot in McCall with a target of providing that comprehensive dental services to all of Marlborough County in the future.
Just speak in the mic.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
You couldn't hear
speak
me?
up just a little bit more if you would.
Well, I was saying in 2014 alone, we saw right at 5,000 visits in the school. So that was 5,000 visits that kids didn't have to miss school, and also 5,000 visits that parents didn't have to take off work to take kids to the dentist. It's been a very successful program so far. So what our ask is that one classroom the week of December 7th, that we can provide comprehensive dental care with the target of providing that comprehensive dental care to the entire Marlborough County school system in the future.
Do we have available a room at McCall to do this, Madam Superintendent?
Dr. Phillips?
I have a question also.
All right. And Mr. Goff has a question?
From my understanding, do we not have map testing or something like that that's occurring that week?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Okay.
First week of December.
Okay. All right, so I guess my other question would be,
Maybe that's not a good.
have you had any contact with the administration in McCall about the use of the facilities and so forth? And
We wanted to make this step first and then work with the administrator on if there was an issue with that particular date that we could move that date. We would like to have it in this calendar year before December's out, though.
okay.
We could do it
Well, I
faster.
think what we could do is we could move to approve that, subject to the date not
Right.
falling on a map testing
Right.
or a testing type situation. So
We could move faster or slower, whichever.
So
is.
the issue is for us to approve the use of a room and then let them work it out with
Yes.
Dr. Tiller
Yes.
and Dr. Phillips and make it work. But our
make a
vote-
motion, Madam Chairman, that we approve the use of a room at McCall, subject to the administration approval and the dates being set that's convenient for the school itself.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, is there any other discussion?
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. And it's unanimous, and thank you very much, and good luck
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
with the program. And thank you, Dr. Phillips. All right, now we go back to the one that I skipped over. Individual items for the December board meeting. Mr. Goff, let's start with you.
All right. I would like to add two things. One would be field trip requirements, what we currently have, and the policy, or if there's not a policy, the school procedure policy manual associated with that.
Okay.
And the other thing I would like to see is the state requirement for volunteers for school-related activities. And the reason that that I bring this up is that it was brought to my attention last week that we had volunteers who were being denied participation in field trips and like activities for traffic violations that were reported back from whatever service that we're using. So whether it was that or the lack of them stating, not sure what a traffic offense has to do with anybody going on a field trip. So anyway, I would like to see what the state requirements are, and if there's any action we need to take as a board to clarify what we're asking for from individuals to make sure that we are not discouraging people from being able to volunteer with our schools.
All right, and there's another one?
No, the other was field trip.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's our school policies for
I
field
thought you had
trips.
three, that's
No,
why.
that's it, those two.
And Dr. Tiller wanted to be recognized on this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share that one thing that I can share, Mr. Goff, on that is we have moved from just using SLED to investigate anyone who wants to work in the school district with children. And we've moved also to, because SLED covered the state of South Carolina, but we've moved to BIP, which is the Bureau of Investigation, Background Investigations. And with that, with their questionnaire, the questionnaire reads, have you ever been convicted of a crime? It doesn't say, have you ever had a traffic ticket? Some of those forms state, have you ever had a violation other than something like a traffic ticket, so on and so forth. On this particular form, with that bureau, it doesn't state it that way. It states, have you ever been convicted? And what we were told is, as far as they're concerned, is even if you have a traffic ticket, any type violation, that National Bureau picks it up. And so if you mark on your application when you're filling that out to volunteer or to be an employee of the district, it will flag anything. For example, if you put down there that you've been convicted and it was a traffic violation, it's not going to flag you. But if you don't put it down there, it's going to pick it up and it flags you. So what we were asking is that when that happens, that the person comes in, redo the application, and just check and put down there, I had a traffic violation, or I had a seatbelt violation, or whatever, so that system, when it runs back through that system, it won't flag it again. So that's what has happened. This is our first year using that system, that particular system for background checks, because we can't just check anymore statewide, because we're using teachers actually from not only the United States but across the globe. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, that's, and just for information, I mean, whether you go to the sheriff's office or whether you go to SLED, the information that you receive back from a criminal background check comes from the National Crime Information Center. That's the NCIC. That's a national database, so it pulls everything. I'm not familiar with Background Investigative Bureau, but what I am familiar with is that a speeding ticket is not a crime. A speeding ticket is an infraction, and just the fact that they report back to it on a paper just seems illogical to me. I got a copy of the letter, and the copy of the letter that they used to say that they took issue with, at the very bottom of it says, criminal record, comprehensive criminal, no criminal record found, other criminal record, Security watch list, no criminal record found. Sex offender registry, no criminal record found. So the fact that somebody got a traffic ticket in 1988 being a cause for flagging them for volunteering with our school district, are we going to hold our staff to this same standard? If not, then we need to, and again, the only thing that I want is, as a board, we need to revisit this, because nobody should ever be restricted from volunteering for a field trip or an activity within the school because they got a speeding ticket or seatbelt violation, any of those things. And so if we need to change services, then we can change services. If we need to specify exactly what we're looking for, people who have been convicted of a crime that carry more of a year in prison, those are things that we need to address. Because again, how many volunteers have we lost because they said they don't have a criminal record? If you ask me, do I have a criminal record? I would say no, and I've got 4 speeding tickets in my life. So, it's, I just think it's a
Mr.
common
Goff,
sense thing.
I think your point is well taken, and maybe we will discuss that at the next meeting.
That's what we'll
Maybe in the interim, there could be some modification of that form.
We've already done that.
Have you
Okay.
modified the form?
All right.
Good.
We haven't modified the form because the form comes from the
Okay.
investigative bureau, so we cannot modify that form. But what we have said, and we've advised people, when you come in, even if it's something as simple as a traffic ticket, to mark it. And the other thing, we have not denied anyone. Those who receive letters, I personally call them and personally explain to them what had occurred.
these
Whenever
peop-
you go to a new system, things like that occur. So that did occur, and I've also asked that a letter be sent out so everyone will know.
Does anybody
ma'am.
have anything else for the next meeting? All right, Ms. Bright?
I know how we do the seminars on bullying. And when have we done something lately on drugs?
Drugs? Dr. Taylor?
Oh, I can't give you that right off. I'd have to meet and ask the principals because they do that individually in their schools.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes.
So you want to discuss?
It was last week.
Okay. Did you want to add something for the next meeting?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Would you want to update on that?
Well, that would go
Okay,
through you.
we will.
Yeah, that would go
Okay.
through you.
Anybody else? All right, moving right along. We need to vote on 2 dates for called meetings in November. And I wasn't real clear what those dates were going to be. I think none of us were because Mr. Duff has to do some things. So, Dr. Tiller, do you have any information that would help us with that?
The only thing that I do have is November 23rd. That was the date that Mr. Duff indicated. Also, it was that meeting should be early as possible during the day, and that's the only date that we've confirmed so far.
All right.
He said that we would try to have it 12 or earlier if possible.
Okay.
And I cannot be November 5th or November 12th and 13th would not be good days for me.
All right. Next is discussion of the Kelly services, and I think Mr. Coachman wanted that one.
Yes. I just wanted to share and find out about some concerns that was going around the community, a lot of concerns in the school district. I think Dr. Tiller has addressed a lot of the things. She's looked into it and addressed some of the things about with the adult ed host substitute and that some things that Kelly Service were not aware of, some of the problems. Seems like some of the things have been addressed and I'm going over, but there are a few things that I'm still concerned about. For instance, like when we first adopted Kelly Services, we were told that the pay of our workers here in the county would not change. They wouldn't lose any pay, and I don't know if it's true or not, but some people said that they're seeing less money since we went with Kelly Service than they were when they were district employees. And another concern, we're having this, if we're having a district employee that is working as a district employee, substituting classes, and being put into Kelly Service system and being moved from class to class, if this is a permanent district employee that shouldn't be in Kelly Services and continue to be moved, there's several people, but they shouldn't be moved. And why they're moving, I think that hurts our instruction. And I think a lot of the teachers depend on our permanent subs to basically fill in, and they're used to them and working with them. And if the people are continually being moving, it's hurting our instruction. So those are some of the concerns that, if they're valid, I'd like to see if we can take care of them, confront them. I don't see a representative from Kelly Services here tonight, but I think we really need to look into this deeply, and especially when it comes to our exceptional children. We should need to make sure that we have our same people with these children, because they are special kids and they need to have the care of the people that they're familiar with, and I know that's a concern of some of the parents. But if we need to address these things, if we can't address these things, I think that we may have to move on or make a decision on going back to where we were, because we don't need chaos in our school system. We need to basically make sure that our kids get instruction from qualified staff on a daily basis.
Do you have anything to say?
I do, and Mr. Coachman, I just want to thank you for bringing that up. After the last meeting, we did, my staff did have a meeting with Kelly Services, a phone conference, and we discussed some of the issues that were brought up then. And as you have reviewed, I'm sure in your packets, you have the information that they shared with us. One thing I'd like to clarify, and that is with our permanent subs are still employees of the district. They do not go through Kelly. They don't receive any directions or assignments from Kelly, because they're a permanent employee and they report to the same school every day. However, once they get to school, it is left up to the principal of each individual school to decide where they will serve that day based on where the principal needs them to serve. So, for example, let's just say a teacher may say to the permanent sub, I'm going to be out tomorrow, I've got a doctor's appointment, I want you to sub for my class. Well, that's well and good, but if the principal comes in, they have a vacancy somewhere else, maybe one class is larger than the other, maybe it can be a lot of different things that's going on that plays into the principal's decision. But the principal could ask that permanent sub to go and cover another area. So that's one thing, because the principals are responsible for making sure that all of their classes are covered and covered appropriately. As it relates to pay, Mr. Park, do you have anything to add?
I will say that Kelly Services uses the same pay schedule that the district uses. The only difference, is, of course, if those substitutes were working less than the full 7.5 hours. Kelly does use a timekeeping system, and of course they are paid on an hourly basis. So there may be instances where that takes place.
So they're using the same pay scale that we were using when they were at this.
Yes, sir.
Per
yes,
hour.
Sir. Per hour. Yes.
But were we paying folks full salary if they worked half a day?
Well, what we...
I think that's part of it. I need an answer to that.
If they're instructional subs, and of course those would be those substitutes that are substituting for a teacher, they would be paid for either a half day or a full day, depending on what their coverage would be. But the other substitutes are paid on an hourly basis. I'd be glad to, if we've got some, specific instances where the substitute was thinking that they weren't being paid correctly, bring that to our attention, and we'll be glad to handle that.
If you
bring it to your attention?
Yes.
Yeah, we
yes,
just have the individual come in and let us know, and then we'll review it with Kelly Services to make sure it's correct.
Okay.
Very good.
And if it's not correct, that it will be corrected.
Is there anything else?
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on before you go with that. Do you have any other questions?
No, that's all I got for you.
Okay, all right, Ms. Fleming.
How long is when do we renew the contract with Kelly Services?
We have it's a 5-year contract, but it is we can within 30 days. We've got a 30-day termination. So,
It's a 5-year contract, but we can terminate it as long as we give a 30-day notice.
notice.
Mr. Goff?
Dr. Taylor, Mr. Park, either one, would it put us in a bad position, staff-wise, if we were to decide that we did not want to pursue Kelly Services long-term?
One of the big concerns we had, just as, you know, as administrators, is looking at the requirements associated with the Affordable Care Act. And part of that is those temporary employees, if they work over 30 hours during a particular period of time, then the district is required to provide them with benefits. And there again, if for whatever reason, somehow that we happen to miss one individual, it could cost the district $1.3 million.
Would you have to provide it to everybody if you miss one person?
If you miss one person, the fine is $2,000 per number of full-time employees. So if we take 650 full-time employees, multiply that by $2,000, the penalty is $1.3 million. So that is what we consider to be our high-risk pool in terms of the potential for missing a benefit.
Have we talked to the individual school administrators to see what sort of, if they're having any issues or not?
Yes, sir, we have. We met with all administrators in the district last month, and we had a lengthy conversation regarding Kelly Services. And the principals and everybody that work with Kelly Services had an opportunity to weigh in and talk about what their concerns are, and that's what's reflected in the board packet. Those were the items that principals and other administrators brought to our attention, and those are the items that we had addressed with Kelly Services.
Could we follow up a month from now with those administrators
yes, sir.
to see where we are and then bring that information back to the
And
board?
matter of fact, we can follow up with them on Wednesday, because we'll meet again this Wednesday for the month of November. And Kelly Services is very aware of our concerns, and that we'll be monitoring to make sure anywhere where they promised that there would be some adjustments where needed, that we will be monitoring that.
Okay. Madam
Ms.
Chair,
Wright.
okay.
Were there another company besides Kelly Services that we were looking at when we was looking?
There was an evaluation. Of course, you may have remembered the request for proposals that we had authorized by the board to actually go out for those services. And then, of course, when we received the information, we had 4 companies that proposed, and based on the evaluation of those proposals, Kelly was the most was the selection in terms of companies. When we looked at some of the others, they did not have experience in South Carolina. In fact, the 3 other companies, we couldn't identify another school district that they were working with within the state of South Carolina. Kelly has got at least 16 other districts, so they clearly were the selection.
Mr. Coachman?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to, can we add this back on the agenda for next month's meeting?
Sure,
The follow-up, and maybe even put it on there for a vote to continue or discontinue with the 30-day notice?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Woods.
with Kelly Service, I'm seeing some comments about exceptional children. Do they provide their staff with training when it comes to exceptional children? Are they very diverse in training when it comes to, because I see some comments by IEPs on here that somebody didn't show up?
I probably would need to defer that question to.
When what Kelly Service, they're responsible for providing the training that we would normally provide to individuals who would serve as substitutes in our district. Before we moved to Kelly Services, Adult Ed, Mr. Gould, and he's with us tonight, Mr. Gould was responsible in our district for providing the training for all substitute teachers. And basically, that training consists of non-instructional routines, instructional routines, discipline issues, and things of that nature. Those everyday things that those subs would encounter. And we went as far as to even meet with the substitutes, and the substitutes would tell us what additional things they felt like they may need in their training. Okay. When we met with Kelly Services to discuss moving in this direction, we shared with them that we would want them to continue to share those same type things in the training with the teachers, well, substitute teachers that they would be training for us, because those are areas that our substitute teachers in the past had said to us that were important to them, in addition to what the state requires.
Okay.
But I don't know, I was just concerned about our exceptional children, the PCAs themselves and the training there. Is there, you can discuss that at the next meeting. We've dealt with this a long while, but
Okay.
there have been some concerns by parents, particularly of exceptional children.
So are we referring to substitutes, or are we referring to
Personal
Well, I'm
care.
trying
the
to
personal
figure out-
care assistants? That's different.
I know, and who is hiring them?
They go through the
They go through, well, there's a question in here about PCAs through Kelly
Was that-
Services, and I was just wondering, I was surprised. I thought we were hiring those folks.
The personal care assistants are employed by Kelly. Of course, they have to go through the Office of Exceptional Children.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Parks,
Fleming?
I understand when you explained it, the Medicare, the Affordable Care Act and how it would cost the district, and that, I didn't like it then. And of course, you look at the financial side, but you're talking, I'm hearing things in the community about children with special needs children. And many times they get attached to a particular person, and it takes years to build that relationship. And that's one of my concerns, is that they, well, I didn't like the service, the idea anyway, but I could accept it. But now that they're here, and all through these questions, see, the only thing Kelly says, since they was not aware, Kelly is, they was not aware, indicated that by prior, Kelly's not aware of this, Kelly needs more information. And all of these answers here, and it's kind of like evasive. In the meantime, you got children that have special needs with parents that really have a day-to-day struggle dealing with this. So I think we need to, as Mr. Coachman said, bring it back, and maybe by then Kelly Service would know exactly what they can provide, and if it's going to be what this district needs to provide, what Kelly can provide. And if it's not what our children needs, then we need to maybe look in another direction. And I'm not saying they're not, but they're just saying, I didn't know, and I wasn't aware. That's too many. I mean, I don't know, and I'm unaware, and we're already 3 months into school.
Mr. Parks? Go ahead, Dr. Tiller.
I just wanted to share that if any parent comes to a member of the board and shares that a PCA has been moved, please let me know that. I have one situation where a PCA was moved that had been with the child for a long period of time, and what we did was just put them back with the child, as simple as that. I think that one of the issues is the fact that principals and Kelly, again, it's a communication thing too. So if we're going to continue down this road, I know that there will have to be more communication on a regular basis. Some principals say they have had no problems. Others have had some issues that they've had to deal with. I would just share as well that as we move forward, we're going to have a system in place one way or the other. So,
Mr. Parks, when you come back next meeting, could you perhaps have an alternative for the board to compare that would be a means of making sure we wouldn't end up with a $1.3 million fine? Or not fine, you know what I mean?
Well,
expense and benefits.
It is a fine
Yeah, the whole affordable care
penalty,
thing.
yeah.
One quick thing before you leave. I read the concerns we have on here, and some of them look like they can be addressed fairly simply. So I'm hoping that there are some good sides and good points also. So when you address it back with us next month, if you bring something to tell me that Kelly's doing a good job as well as what we're concerned about, give me something to weigh against each other if you could, please, sir.
I think one of the things that would be helpful is if we could actually have Kelly come in.
That would be nice.
I think that would be important for them to be able to present.
Because there appears to be a communication problem in a
Certainly.
lot of different areas.
And there again, I work in the district office. I do visit schools, but I don't spend the amount of time in that area. So,
if it would please the board, we could always have principals share their experiences with Kelly service, be it positive or negative, because the principals really interface with them more than at the district level, because we're using them primarily for employees that are temporary in our school system or part-time.
That sounds like a very good suggestion.
okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Parks. And next, the backpack program, and that's Ms. Owenation.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I had really wanted to have our staff share with us what we had done in the past, because in the past we have supported this program as a district, and it was done through our risk funds, that's what I call it. But it appears that all of our funds in that regard are used this year in other means, and that providing food packs is not part of what that money can be used for. So that was really my question. I wanted the staff to come back to us with that. But I would love to encourage the board members in the district to support this program, because it does provide food over the weekends for needy children. And we're trying to do that in Blenheim and in Wallace. And we'd like to also maybe add McCall to that, depending on community support. So we need community support for this issue, and perhaps the school district itself could write some letters to some grocery stores and Walmart to ask for some support if that food would be appropriate for this program. So I'd just like to suggest that.
And that was one of the discussions we had earlier today in our senior team meeting, is that we would be reaching out to businesses within our community to ask for assistance with this.
And I thank you for that. I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
that.
And the next item is the board meeting format, and that's also Ms. Owenation.
Okay. Well, we've had a real good discussion among board members today, and I'm glad to see that. One of my concerns has been that we do have very long meetings, sometimes 4 or 5 hours or more. A lot of times at the end of that, we're almost numb. Certainly, we're tired. I would like to see us spend more time on the kinds of things we just spent it on, which is doing those things that we as a board, I would call it vision time, and maybe setting direction time, something like that. And in order to do that, we need to change some of the things that we're doing. And for example, we spend a good bit of time on getting information. And one of the things we've asked for as a board, and I'd like to reiterate it to our staff, is that information be presented to us in writing or by email prior to the meeting, so that we don't then have to have an additional explanation of that, either by PowerPoint or discussion, that the board can ask questions if it needs to. And I would suggest that maybe we limit staff reports to 3 minutes. If we need more time, of course we will take it. But that would help us to get through the information portion so that we can get to the voting portion and to some other things that we need to do. I'd also like to talk about outside experts, that may be limiting that up to 15 minutes, unless it is an auditor's report that we need more time and spend it on it, unless it is a 10-year plan for our facilities. Of course, that might take more time. But if we could narrow down our information getting and upscale our vision making. That's what I'd like to do.
All right. So 3, 15, and 5?
Okay, that sounds good. Maybe even our superintendent's report could be in writing or limited to 5 minutes, something like that, so that I can review it later. I love to have things in writing so that I can do it. And I would like to just say that our staff is very talented, and we appreciate what you do. I would also like to share, or just to say, that in my heart I feel there's a lot of talent and experience on this board, and I don't feel that that talent and experience is being tapped as we could possibly do it as a board. We reach a consensus and we do something. We go out in the community to better the education for our children, and I would love to have the opportunity to do that. And I would like to make a motion that we change the format.
I'd like to make a suggestion
Certainly.
to add to what you've said. I think that some of the time the staff go through, a verbatim reading everything in order to get the information out to the community, and yet we have a reporter sitting right over there that could be given the information and let them put it in the paper, and then the whole county would get it, and we don't have to have everybody sit here and listen to it. They can read it in the paper on Thursday. Would that work for?
No, ma'am.
It wouldn't work for you?
No, ma'am.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Ms. Fleming?
I'm just not really clear on what, you're asking. And if we go into, we just finished discussing Kelly's services, maybe we didn't get enough information at that time, because now we're second guessing ourselves. Are we getting concerns from the community? And only the staff can give us that information. So I don't know, I guess I'm not against it per se, but sometimes some things you need more information on.
And I agree with that. And I think I do.
So I think the format and say limited. We've got the strategic plan on today. Well, the strategic plan, that's going to be for a whole 12 school year, I'm assuming, and sometimes they may be, I guess it's they've done a lot of work to get it, and they want to give it to us, and to limit it, I don't know. And then we have Mr. Stevenson on here, and certainly that's something that we've been anxiously waiting to hear. But if he feels like I can't do it and I got to hurry up,
right,
cut it short, there will be questions that we might need, I might want to ask about each individual school. So
I didn't express that clearly enough, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
There are always exceptions.
Yeah.
And as I said, for outside experts like an auditor or
Yeah.
for Mr. Stevenson,
Yeah.
who's doing a 10-year plan, we would extend that as a board.
Exactly.
And I also would not want to eliminate any questions the board would have about anything. What I'm trying to do is to narrow down the time that is spent on pure information.
I want to have less time too. I agree with you there.
So that we can ask these
our
questions.
meetings will not be that long.
More in depth, and then our contracts, we do that in executive session. So I'm just trying to come up with a format where maybe we could move a little faster on those things that we can get as information and spend more time on the questions that we have about those issues.
Mr. Woods?
Ms. O'Neill, I understand what you're saying, but we need to be, you're making a great point, and we're here to give direction. The suggestion I make is that if we want our information, won't we set up a guideline that at least give us 2 weeks in advance of information that's going to be for before the next board meeting? Because we need to be very careful and understanding that the citizens have a right to know and understand what we're discussing, but at the same time, we need to have ample time to read over all the information before the board meeting, and ask, could the staff get it to us at least 2 weeks before our board meeting, so we have ample time to read it and to discuss it or have questions when we come to the board meeting.
And we do have a board policy that indicates that we don't have 2 weeks, and that's maybe a really good suggestion there too, but we do have a board policy that indicates we should receive the written reports prior to the board meeting, but I don't think it specifies how long, so that's a really good suggestion. Along those lines.
Mr. Coachman?
Yes, I understand what Ms. Nathan said, and sometimes we do have long meetings, but as a board, like Ms. Nathan said, we do have board policy, and policy BBA states that, the board is responsible for providing adequate and direct means for keeping the local school citizenry informed about the school boards, for keeping itself and its staff informed about the wishes of the public. All planning, both which is and is not related to the budget, needs to be interpreted to the public if citizens are support the school system. So we have to get this information out so we can give to the citizens. It's all a part of our meetings. There's a way we can shorten it, we can shorten it, but we have to stay within the policy to keep the citizens informed.
Right. And we do have a website, and we do have a newspaper. In addition to that, something I wanted us to talk about as a board before I brought it up, but I am not averse to having the superintendent and the curriculum director have an hour in which they are televised to present that type of information to the public. I think that that would be a good thing, not a bad thing. And I don't think that that necessarily precludes us from having a business meeting, which is what this board is about primarily. We have buildings that we must take care of. We have a budget, and we have goals to set for our superintendent, for her to deal with her staff. And it's just, I think we need to refine what we're doing.
Mr. Goff?
Probably the average board meeting that we have, probably for the last 4 years, has been in the neighborhood of about 3 hours.
Except for the first two.
Except for maybe the first two. I can't remember. I can't remember those. I just remember the long ones. And we've had some where we've been here till 9:30, 10, 10:30 at night. And the problem is that out of those 3 or 4 hours, that most of the time we spend about 10 or 15 minutes on actual voting issues. So I don't have an issue with moving along the lines of what Mr. Coachman Ms. Onasian and Mr. Wood said, making sure we have information prior, and that way if we have questions about it, we can ask questions. We've also got Ms. McQueen attends all of our meetings. I'm pretty sure their email address is readily available, so any information that we have, and I've spoken with Mr. McNeil about this, any information that we want in the paper, all we have to do is email it to the Marlboro Herald, and that information will be put into the newspaper. There's other local resources that we have to keep the public informed. The thing is these are business meetings, and when we spend 3 hours on information and pie charts and all of those things, we kind of lose focus of what we're actually supposed to be doing, which is establishing the goals for the district, the vision for the district, making sure our policies and things are where they need to be so that people can do their jobs. I think I had never heard that, but what Ms. Onasian said, I think might be a really good suggestion. We have the cameras here. They're here. Don't know what time they're setting up in the afternoons, but maybe we allow the district some time that they can get in and put that information out, before our regular meetings start.
Ms. Bright?
I think most of our time is spent on us agreeing on what to do. Okay, Mr. Westphal got up there and gave us what he had to give us in 2 minutes. Okay, this discussion that we have in here has taken more than 5 minutes. Okay, so it's our discussion that's making the meetings long. It's not the information that they're giving us. And yes, sometimes they present us with PowerPoints. Okay, I want to see those PowerPoints, and I may have it in my booklet, but I think that when the public comes out here, take their time and come out here, that they are privileged to that information that they're giving us also. So if we're talking about adjusting the agenda, the format of it, I think we need to be mindful of what we have to say and not take 20 minutes to say it. That's my 2 cents.
I also agree with that. We do spend a lot of time discussing, but that's the business of the board, to discuss issues and vote. And I think when we have it presented to us in a booklet and we read it, we can move forward. And I also think that the superintendent and they should have additional time if they want it to present to the public, and I think that we can do that. So anyway, I would make a motion that we modify the format of our agendas to reflect some timely concerns, which is information presented to us 2 weeks ahead of time, that we limit our staff reports to about 3 minutes unless we ask questions that make it longer. And that we also never mind. That's good enough. Let's do that one.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? We've sort of already discussed.
We've already discussed it.
We've had discussion.
I call for the question, Madam Chairman.
All right, all in favor, please raise your right hand.
Super Dr. Tiller wanted to say something.
But she called for the question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
All right.
Well, I do have that motion.
The only thing I wanted to share,
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
the only thing I wanted to share is the fact that I've already limited my staff. They've already been limited to 2 or 3 minutes. And so, and everything that we present, it's in your packet when you receive it. Whatever the board's pleasure is fine with us. But again, as a staff, we do have the responsibility of making sure that we're keeping everybody abreast. And we do send out the newsletter. We do send information to the paper. We do put things on the website. But again, whatever the pleasure of the board is, but I want you to know that these things that occur on the agenda, those are just things that we need to bring to the board, and then those things that the board asks us to bring. So there's nothing extra, but I don't know any quick way to discuss testing. I don't know any quick way to talk about our strategic planning, because that's so in-depth. But whatever the pleasure of the board is, we'll make that adjustment.
All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all opposed. The motion's carried. All right, Administrative Services, Dr. McLeod, update on school projects.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Tiller, as far as the Wallace School, our update on it, the only thing that's been added to the Wallace School are the shutters on the outside, so therefore I didn't bring you a PowerPoint tonight.
Good job.
They will have an OSF, which is the Office of School Facilities, and overhead inspection this Wednesday and Thursday. The contractors indicated that everything is on schedule, and the only thing that would put a kink in that would be that Office of School Facilities instruction that takes place on Wednesday and Thursday of this week.
Great.
With the press box at the baseball field, Mr. Fauché has indicated that he expects to finish that facility within the next 30 days. That was what he said to me on Thursday. So we'll see what happens. Also, at this point, Mr. Brown will give you an update on the Blenheim Fields, or if you would like to vote on the basketball trip first.
Let us do that quickly, and we'll get that done. This is a tournament at Charleston. Funding's already provided.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, would anyone like to make a
So
motion?
moved, Madam Chairman, to
Is there a
approve that.
second?
I second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. The motion's carried. Thank you. All right, so Mr. Brown?
Madam Chair, board members, Dr. Tiller, I'm going to report on the status of the Blenheim ball fields. The committee that was assigned, we've met one time and discussed the ball fields in Blenheim. Discussion of the committee, the decision of the committee was to engage the services of the engineer, Mr. Jim Blackwell from Laurinburg, North Carolina. Mr. Blackwell and he is semi-retired, but he did all the ball fields in all the recreation department in Laurinburg for several years. And I've engaged his services and met with him, discussed the ball fields. I provided the plats of the 2 pieces of property, and he and I have met again, and the plan that the committee came up with was to locate a baseball field, a softball field, football/soccer field, large enough for a soccer and football, as well as a track around the football soccer field. That was the idea, to see what we could come up with. He and I have met again. He has cut out paper like dials, ball fields to twist and turn and set on the plans.
3 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, we don't have a plan. Has not been drafted at this time. Mr. Blackwell's draftsman suffered a heart event and was hospitalized and had heart catheterization last week. So we're in hopes that we'll have something within probably 2 weeks as far as an actual drawing for the committee to look at, or the board, whatever the wishes are.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Is it anything else you need to say, Mr. Brown?
Yeah.
Have a
If you
nice.
have something else to say, then I want to hear it.
No, that was all.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
And I'd like to make something very clear, and I'm not meaning to be a control freak at all, but the calling of time is the job of the chair, and that will stay with the job of the chair. And thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
All right.
And I have something that I want
Sure.
to say.
All right.
Okay. If we ask them to bring us information, then I want to hear the information that
Right.
they have to bring.
That's
okay.
right.
And if it takes 4 minutes instead of 3,
Absolutely.
then it's going to take 4 minutes instead of 3.
And you understand I wasn't calling time on him.
Yes, ma'am, and you understand it. I'm just saying that I
Yeah,
want to hear
yeah.
whatever a person.
That's right.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that even with the issue of 3, 15, 5, or whatever, a big dose of common sense needs to go in there.
Absolutely.
And I know that that's what Ms. O'Nation wants.
So if somebody is approaching 3 minutes or not near 3 minutes, then it's not necessary for you to call them
Right.
out.
I've always done that.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I
You
have.
have
I've
done
let
it from
people
time
go
to time,
over.
but not always. Okay?
Please,
When it's
that's
to your
discussion we don't
benefit,
need
you
to have.
do.
Let's
Yeah,
All right?
Move forward.
No, we need to get this straightened out, okay? So don't be rude when somebody is going over 3 minutes.
Are you accusing me of being rude tonight?
Just move on. We don't
Best
want to
not.
waste time. Move on.
All right, Mr. Parks, the financial report as of October 23rd, 2015.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Tiller, you have the report in front of you for the budget by object for general fund operations with expenditures to date. At October 23rd, 2015, the district's cash was $3,625,012. As of that same date, the district had expended $8,022,962 of a $31,255,963 budget, or approximately 1/4 of budget as of that date. Any questions?
Any? Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Parks. And the Wallace
The
School
Wallace School,
construction project update?
there have been no changes to the budget and the project as of the date of this report. Of course, we've reported all that information previous.
Thank you, Mr. Park.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Very good.
And
Long-range
now
plan.
we have the update on long-range school
Okay.
facility study.
Very good. You
Dr. Stevenson?
I'll do just a little brief
Okay.
on this. You have the long-range facility study as prepared. As indicated, of course, the district engaged Dr. Stevenson in 2007, 2008 to evaluate the district's facilities. The purpose of the study, as stated in the report, was to gather sound data that can be used to make appropriate recommendations to the district about how that might best accomplish its facility goals over the next 10 years. Dr. Stevenson will present his report now.
Thank you for coming, Dr. Stevenson.
I'm very glad to be here. I floated down from Columbia in the and the rain.
And again,
but,
as Ms. Fleming said, Dr. Stevenson, we have been looking for this report for some time. If it takes longer than 15 minutes, certainly we would be happy, I would be happy to hear it unless some other board members do not want to hear it.
And it's going to
Well,
take more than 3 minutes, hopefully.
as many of you actually know, I've spent almost all my professional life being a college professor. 3 minutes, I'm not sure I could handle. 15, maybe, but...
I gave you 15 for experts, okay?
I will go through this relatively rapidly, but I do want to make certain points, make sure that if you have questions or clarifications that I do address those. First, I want to thank this board and your superintendent for having the foresight to look to the future. That doesn't happen all over this state, and a lot of people go from day to day, what do we need to do today to keep our kids out of the rain in decent facilities and so forth. And it has been a real pleasure for me to come back and look after having done the 2007-2008 study. And I'll mention what I see differently from when I did that study. Mr. Toole's going to help me with the presentation by keeping me moving. Mr. Toole, keep me moving. But let's go to that first slide. Basically, the steps that I used this time are the same as I used last time. I am not an architect. I am not a construction manager. I'm not an engineer. My job when districts hire me, at least from my perspective, is to give you the best recommendations I can in terms of how best to meet the educational needs of your school district. And that's what this study particularly focuses on, how to provide adequate facilities, not just to keep them out of the rain, but to make sure you can offer the programs that you want to. To do that, I need to look at population projections. I need to look at the current buildings in terms of condition. From that, I identify problems. I've developed a bunch of different options and analyzed those over and over, and finally decided in your particular case, even though I told you something a little differently before, that from my perspective as an outside professional, there's probably one option that would be best for you to consider. But it is your consideration and your final judgment as a school board. It is your community, and mine are just suggestions. What I want to do, Mr. Toole, is go to the next one. Basically, what you are going to continue to experience is what I found and projected in 2007, 2008. Your student population is slowly but surely going to continue to drop. And one projection that I ran, and I'm fairly comfortable with, says you're going to lose about 160 students over the next 10 years. But it's going to be a little bit uneven. Some of that's going to be, in fact, the biggest numbers are going to be at the elementary level and followed by the high school level. What's interesting, your middle school population is going to grow a little bit because you have the rabbit and a snake kind of consideration where bigger elementaries go through the middle, but then the elementary classes after that are smaller, and I'll show you why in a moment. But I do want to add a little word of caution. I've run this two different ways. In a worst case scenario, if longer history would prevail, you would probably be looking at losing more like 300 students. But lately, your retention rate in terms of what is born in the county versus what comes to school, and then among grade levels or between grade levels, has increased. And it makes me more optimistic that your loss will be fairly minimal. Let me show you the next slide. And this is really, as a board, what you've been dealing with for a long, long time. The very far left shows the birth rates in the early 90s, and you approached 525 live births per year. If you go down to 2013 on the far right, you see that that's dropped somewhere to around just over 300. So the students you're going to have in school are pretty much determined by the live births 5 and 6 years later. And that trend line is pretty obvious and overt that your district has lost population and probably will continue to lose population unless something intervening happens. If a Babo-like company comes in, all bets are off. If you have one of your industries that are here decide that it's closing doors, it could drop off even more. But basically, you're not a school district that's facing overcrowding as your major problem, but you are facing problems, and I'll get to those. If we could go, Mr. Toole, to the next one. This is basically the trend line since 2010.
Dr. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Bright wanted to ask you a question about that slide.
Could you go back to the prior slide, please? Okay, now that's a county live births.
Right.
Did you do Marlboro County or did you do the surrounding counties?
It's Marlboro County. It's live births by address. So if a child is in residence at Marlboro County but is born in another county, it's included in those numbers. Okay? It's live births by address. That's a good question, very good question. This is the basic trend line for the period, basically 25 years from 2010 through 2025, and basically it shows what I've just said. You're going to have some ups and downs, but basically lose some population. Interestingly, if it helps you feel comfortable that those numbers are fairly accurate, I look back at the 2002, 2007, 2008 report, and the number of students you had in 2014-15 were basically what I projected you would have. So I'm pretty comfortable that unless something strange happens, the numbers I'm sharing with you are going to be accurate for the foreseeable future. Going on to the next slide, the second thing I looked at was to see how many places you had to house your students, and what you see here is a result of that. And what you generally see is that all of your schools are going to have some excess capacity. So it's, again, not your problem. Your problem in the next 10 years is not going to be overcrowding. It's going to be how to best use spaces where you have some room for growth. Bennettsville Intermediate and Blenheim probably in the 200 range in terms of excess. High school 300, and the other schools in between. Totally, right now what you have is about 1,000 projected spaces you could put kids if they happen to come into the county. Yes, sir.
The high school, you're basing that 300 on the figures that we have now versus 10 years from now, correct?
Right. The high school will...
We built this high school when one time we were in this Big 16 or whatever, we probably had, 2,000 kids here. Now we got 14. So we've already lost 600 kids. So you're telling me in 10 more years we're going to lose 300 more. So what we built the school for, the capacity of 2,000, we're going to be lost 900 of them. So we're going to have a good amount of space that we're not going to need or utilizing.
Or may need to use differently. What you're actually going to lose are about 80 students total for the high school. But what you're going to have as a result of the numbers of students you're going to have in the 10-year period is excess of 300 student stations at that school.
So we built the school for and housed in the beginning, like you said, we have some space that we could use differently, even in this high school probably.
Right.
Okay,
right. Yep. You certainly do, and that's part of what I'll share with you in a moment. If we could go to the next slide. This slide graphically presents the same information. Any school you have in the district right now will have over the next 10 years some room for growth. Each one has some excess capacity. The exciting thing I want to share with you next, Mr. Toole, is the third part of what I do, and that is to look at conditions of schools. When I came in here in 2007, 2008, I had great concern when I went around and looked at some of your schools. Some of the most challenging conditions I've seen in doing this in 30-some years around the state, I saw here. What I saw when I came back this spring was some tremendously positive changes. The overall rating when I did my condition analysis of all your schools is B, which is good. You had some variations off of that, but if you look in the middle of this slide, when I came here in 2007, 2008, your overall rating was under 80. It was 78. It was a C+, marginal at best. So what you have done over the last few years has just been wonderful in terms of increasing the equity and the quality of educational facilities for your youngsters. The one exception to that now is the Bennettsville area, and that's the area you've been talking about when we were here, when I was here for the listening session and so forth. And we go to the next slide. What I want to show you is graphically the individual ratings of the schools, and you can see the new schools on the left-hand side are approaching 100%, little thing here, little thing there. But the schools that have the lowest ratings are the intermediate and elementary school in the Bennettsville area. Interestingly enough, this is really important when you see my recommendations. The biggest challenge at Bennettsville Primary is not the quality of facility. it's overcrowding at that facility. It's a decent facility, so it rates low, not because it doesn't have good spaces, but because you've had to put portables in there because of the number of little warm bodies and that kind of thing. The intermediate school, on the other hand, is like me. It's at least middle age, maybe a little past middle age, and has worn down and out, and you really need to start thinking about doing something differently in housing students in that facility. Having looked at the population, having looked at the condition, having looked at your capacities, I did look at several different ways that you might meet your needs over the next 10 years, realizing that you don't need to do anything in terms of building for new capacity, but addressing needs in terms of quality and equity and those kinds of things. And what I have next, Mr. Toole, is a slide that says basically what I'm going to do now is recommend to you for your consideration, and this is a draft. I will listen to you again and to the administration before I finalize my report, that does two things: moves you forward in fully utilizing or more fully utilizing your existing facilities, and recognizes particularly the inadequacy of the Bennettsville Intermediate School. So this option basically is built around those two particular challenges. It doesn't mean I do not have recommendations for other schools or for other considerations, but that's the basic focus that I had for doing this. As we move to the particular recommendations that I have in my plan, let me start with the Bennettsville area, because it in general is the area that needs the greatest amount of attention by the part of the board and eventually by the community. And that's natural. You've been working your way around the various geographic areas of the county. It's not that Bennettsville hasn't had anything happen. It's just everybody has had a turn, and it's now the turn of the board and the community to look at Bennettsville. One of the things that's probably a little surprising to some people is a concern I have for your high school. You walk into this high school, it's a nice looking high school, and it has plenty of space for doing programs and those kinds of things. But one of the things you want to make sure of is that the programs that you are offering are programs that are most viable for your students when they go out, and particularly for gainful employment. And one of the things that I would strongly recommend as you look at your long-range plan is your vocational programs at your high school and how to remodel and reconstruct the facilities there to meet the programs that you think will be most viable in providing employment opportunities when your high school students complete those programs. Bennettsville Primary, like all the other schools, will lose a little bit of population, and eventually some of the portables there will disappear anyway. But one of the things I looked at in terms of better use of some of your facilities that have even more vacant capacity, is it not possible to look at something like Bennettsville Primary and relocate some of the special needs programs to other facilities? So part of my recommendation at Bennettsville Primary is to just wait, because that population number is going to drop, but also help that school out by providing relief through relocations of some programs that could end up in at least as good of facilities, if not better, than where they are now. My big recommendation for the report and for the area of Bennettsville is the last one, and that basically is to replace the current intermediate school with a new facility. And that school, in my recommendation, would serve grades 3 through 5. That means the 6th grade that's there now would have to be relocated, and because of the excess space, as you read the report, what I've suggested is that they, like the 7th and 8th grade who are now at Blenheim, attend as well. And there's some real advantages to that by having 6th, 7th, and 8th of all the Blenheim and Bennettsville students at the same place. One of them is that you can offer your middle school curriculum with greater continuity. You don't have 6th graders who start and then they go join the 7th and 8th grade for middle school in a different location and so forth. Yes, sir.
Mr. Goff, do you have the numbers of the current students that we're moving around? I know that we've got, as far as the 6th graders in Blenheim, do you know how many 6th graders from Blenheim that we're currently moving to Bennettsville? And then do you know how many 7th and 8th graders from Bennettsville that we're currently moving to Blenheim?
Yeah. And I had to look at all of that to make sure that when I made these recommendations, the number of students total that I would end up at each school would not exceed the capacity of a particular school. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that my job is to recommend for the next 10 years. And so the numbers today will not be the numbers in the next few years out. In fact, they will continue to drop. But even so, I think within the next year or two, any of these recommendations you could do and not overcrowd any of your schools.
But as it stands, you're saying that the sixth grade academy that we have, if those students were to move back to Blenheim, we would still have adequate room to house them?
Yes, you would. And there's adequate facilities located contiguous to one another at that school, because I walked it a couple times to make sure that.
Ms. Owenation?
You're also indicating the Clio 6th through 8th graders be moved to Blenheim.
Which is a small number, but yes.
A small number.
When I get.
And there's room at Blenheim for this.
There will be within the 10-year period.
What would you do with the with the Clio school?
Let me go on through.
Okay.
Because I address all of those.
That's just 6th through 8th graders.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the Bennettsville area recommendations. Primarily, the major recommendation is that you rebuild Bennettsville Intermediate. You as a board have to decide if that's the option that's best for this community and the option that meets the needs of youngsters as you see it. Could you have a 3-6 new school? Certainly you could. The disadvantage from my perspective as the educational professional making recommendations to you is the separation of the 6th grade from the middle school program. And then in your case, you have 6th graders coming from Blenheim for 1 year to the intermediate school and then going back, which is about as big a no-no as most people would tell you can have in terms of continuity in the learning process. All right. Now, if we could go to the next slide. If you build a new intermediate school, there are parts of the current intermediate school, the newer portion, that actually could be continued to be used and serve a very useful purpose. So what I've recommended in the draft that you have is that you move the School of Discovery after remodeling of those newer portions of the intermediate school to that school. And what you gain there are two things. One, there's an auditorium there that would have to be updated, and that would be perfect for that program. And actually, that program is more centrally located for what it does and where it performs if it's in Bennettsville than where it is now. So part of this is using the current intermediate school to better serve a program that needs some facilities. Clio is an interesting one. If you look at the numbers, it's a little over 200 now, and it's going to continue to drop a little bit. At the elementary level, that does not concern me, but it does concern me when you look at your middle school grades 6, 7, and 8, because what you end up with are extremely small classes of youngsters in the middle school where you're required to have a separate kind of certification. You as a board told me when we met that you were concerned with providing quality, but also you had a great concern for economy and efficiency. One way to keep Clio as is would be to continue to fund small 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classes at a cost more, considerably more than what you would be doing on average around the school district. The other is to put that small number of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders with the Bennettsville and Blenheim kids in a 6th, 7th, and 8th at Blenheim. What that does, and something you really probably will want to consider longer term, and I'm hoping as the state rebounds this will happen. There's been talk and there's been effort to move to a universal 4K program across the state. It hasn't happened yet, but your district would be one of the wonderful places for that to be. And if you have a K-5 at Clio with room available for something else, Clio would be a wonderful place to consider an early childhood center that would serve the district. So my recommendation is that you at least study taking those spaces at Clio, not leaving them empty, but looking to make that a really neat, special, if you will, magnet school for early childhood programs. At Blenheim, that is a wonderful school, by the way. I can't tell you how I about cried when I saw it this time. I cried the first time I saw it, but for a different reason. But it is a wonderful school, but it is way underutilized. There's about 200 extra stations there that you can put to use. And what I've said there basically is look very hard at the possibility of putting all your middle school youngsters, 6th, 7th, and 8th, from Blenheim, Bennettsville, and Clio at that school for the foreseeable future.
One of the problems that we have with that is the Auburn busing. Most of the parents are not excited about their children being bused from Clio or Bennettsville to Blenheim and back each day. It makes it some long routes, some long days. So that's one of the problems that would want to be brought forward if you start doing too much busing around and relocating of students.
I absolutely understand that, and it's not easy for me to stand up and make these recommendations. I work hard to bring them to you, but I know it's especially hard for you then as a school board to make the final determinations about what you're going to do. But you're like a lot of boards around the state right now. You're caught between that rock and the hard place in the sense that you want your youngsters to have a quality education, but you also need to do that as efficiently as you can in terms of your operating costs. And you have some really small schools and some small grades. You either fund those at an appreciable cost above average, or you have your community say, we want those smaller numbers, we're willing to pay for the extra bus rides, we're willing to pay for the extra teachers to do that. That becomes the crux of the whole thing, is I can lay this out for you professionally, but then you have to listen to your communities. But at the same time, you're stewards of not only your communities, but of the education of your children in these communities. So it's a tough decision. Yes, sir.
Okay. So as this stands, you're saying Clio would still house the current low-grade students that they have in addition to becoming an early childhood center?
Yep. It would be a pre-K-5 plus an extended early childhood center. And it's a great school for that. Single story, relatively new.
And just to go along, I understand what Mr. Driggers is saying, but as it stands currently, we have Blenheim students that are being transported from Blenheim to Bennettsville, and we also have Bennettsville students that are being transported from Bennettsville out to Blenheim. Then we've got 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at Clio that are now still having to get on a bus. It's only a couple of miles, but they're still having to move them to the School of Discovery for their math and English right now. So it kind of makes sense that we may have to move them 8 more miles, but we're eliminating the traffic that's leaving Blenheim and going back to Bennettsville. Now we've got one-way traffic coming from Bennettsville to Blenheim, and then they turn around and go back. And then these kids that are getting on the bus, the majority of them, now we're just going to bus them, up Dunbar, and then you can put them in Blenheim. So it's not really, I think you may end up, I don't know what the dollarization is on the bus travel, but you may end up with some savings with the current situation that we have.
I agree, we may end up with some savings, but we also may end up with a lot of editorials in the newspaper or parents not happy, and that's part of our job. We're here to manage the money, but we also want to keep the people within the county, satisfied with their job. But one more quick question. Did you look at combining the Discovery School with Blenheim? Blenheim already has the auditorium, already has that stuff that's available for them. Did you look at that at all?
I did. I looked at 5 or 6 different options, and that's certainly, if the board wanted to go that route, that's a better use of Blenheim. Blenheim needs to be used more. That's the most obvious. But in looking at all the problems I wanted to solve, or the things I wanted to address in terms of quality of education, one of the biggest was getting the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade together. There's not an educator that I respect that would tell you splitting those off, and especially having a grade that goes off one year and comes back to be part of a class where they were part of the class before. So yeah, I looked at those, and there are certainly other possibilities that you may eventually decide. There's nothing on this list of recommendations I'm making that could not be considered a little differently from my mind, except one, and that is you need a new school for the intermediate grades in Bennettsville. And that's going to take most of your money anyway, so some of the others may or may not be possible in your lifetime.
That was my question. The intermediate schools are why I think we put some considerable amount of money in that school a few years ago. And the minute you're talking about the school on Sherrod Street, you're saying that that school needs to be just demolished? That because I'm thinking that from what I was told, was under the impression that we know the auditorium needs to go, but this whole facility.
Now you're talking about the intermediate school?
Yes.
A goodly portion of the intermediate school is 50s era. It's 50s.
Okay.
It's about as old as I am. I don't know how else to put that. I don't mean that as a joke, but I'm pretty good, but I'm not as good as I used to be, and I'm not going to get a lot better.
It is.
There is a newer section of that building, which I would strongly recommend the district look at as saving and making that the Discovery School, and to keep the auditorium and upgrade that. And part of my cost estimates included that, because the the School for Discovery actually is a wonderful program that could benefit from having an auditorium to practice and also give performances. So yeah, I'm not saying take it all down, but there's a goodly portion of it that you could board up. I would say raise it, but I would say you could hold on to it for a while and see if you ever needed it again. But I don't see that being a viable option.
What was your cost estimate for repairs to that auditorium?
The total for the, let me go back and find my little note here, for the Bennettsville intermediate, about $3 million to make it into School of Discovery. How much you actually spend there, I mean, you have students there now. You could move a program in there with the idea that you would phase in doing some things. If the auditorium, which would be the most expensive part probably of upgrading that school, became a cost issue for you, that school doesn't have, the School of Discovery does not have an auditorium now. And as I understand it, comes to Bennettsville and uses facilities here. So there's some cost savings, but if you wanted to make it a lighthouse program and with a lighthouse set of spaces, you would update those classrooms, you would update the auditorium, and they would be set for a considerable length to come. Another program that you had in an interesting place when I came in 2007. Yes, sir.
You say School of Discovery don't have what now? Auditorium.
They do have an auditorium.
They do have an auditorium, but it's not, let me say that differently. It's not one where you would draw a crowd for, my understanding is when they want to do a performance for the public, they do it in Bennettsville, not there. And so they can practice there, but they can't use it for presentations. So glad you helped me out there. The alternative school when I came in 2007, 2008 was in the back lot with a bunch of portables. And I found out you'd moved them, so I was really excited. Then I found them at what I call the Lake School, and I said, I think that's a little bit better, but what I would suggest, if you follow my puzzle in putting all the parts together, is that the School of Discovery, the new building, not the old one, but the new building, would be a wonderful center for kids in alternative programs. The spaces are there. You would have to do very little with them. There's a place to eat, all of those kinds of things. So part of the plan would be, as you can see, as one part becomes available, it gets used for something else that, in terms of a problem I'm trying to address. That covers the major ones, Mr. Toole, if we can go on. Major recommendations for schools specifically affected by my plan. But I wanted to take a moment, and we talked about this a little bit when I was here in the listening session. What you will want to continue to do is maintain all your schools. You have these wonderful new schools. Wallace is coming online. Clio has that wonderful addition. Blenheim's online. And you say, we're in great shape. But if you're going to keep those schools in great shape, and if you're going to take McCall, which is a good school, and keep it in good shape, you're going to have to continue to spend money on those too. So part of my plan recommends that you continue to spend money for preventive maintenance, upgrades, to, you know, like your electrical system, mechanical systems, and so forth. I think I mentioned this to you before. On average, what people tell you need to do is to spend about 2% of the capital value of your property annually for maintenance, preventive maintenance, those kinds of things. You have $100 million. It's, you know, sometimes you don't realize it. You have $100 million worth of property, and 2% of that's $2 million a year you should be spending just to keep facilities up, starting with your new buildings, because you don't want those to become old buildings prematurely. So the plan does address also keeping up what you already have. There are some other recommendations, though, that are important for you to think about, and we can certainly talk about it at some point in time. One of the things that I discovered last time, and I think it was it became very apparent when I tried to find a parking place to come back over this time to meet with the superintendent, is that you have some real issues with your administrative and support central functions. And you have them scattered, you have them in cramped spaces and those kinds of things. While I wouldn't recommend that you keep using the Lake School for the alternative program, I think if you spent some money on that facility, you could house adequately your central administrative and support functions, and do so very adequately, and not affect at all the new technical school initiative you have going on. In fact, I think you would probably have some building space left over, and again, my recommendation would be, if you have some of that older building space left over, after you remodel it for central administration, you probably would want to raise that too. The other suggestion, and this comes back to you were talking about busing. One of the most interesting things about doing facilities work is if you make a recommendation and it's a good one, for 50 years you can drive by and say, I helped that happen. The trouble is, if you make a bad recommendation, there's 50 years you drive by and somebody said, you recommended that, why did you do that? It's something you see forever. And the reason I point that out, if I could redo your school district, and you can't because you have bricks and mortar in place, I would be looking at a very different configuration than your K-8, your K-5s, and then with centralization of middle school or middle schools. But one of the things that I do recommend in this report, that won't happen, I don't think, in the next 10 years, but gets to Blenheim, gets to Bennettsville, gets to Clio, is that eventually you're going to have a new middle school servicing those areas. And I would start thinking about that now in terms of location, who might attend that, and not wait till the 10 years are out. Blenheim can house those 6 through 8 now and through the next 10 years if the projections hold. After those 10 years, or if something changes for you economically, you're going to need that middle school, make sure you, and I can verify you would need it fairly quickly. So this 10-year recommendation that I've shared with you includes a recommendation beyond the 10 years to seriously begin thinking about a middle school that would eventually let Blenheim go back to what it was doing, and so forth. If I can have you, Mr. Toole, go to the strengths and weaknesses of what I've shared with you. If you would take my recommendations and implement them in total, one of the things you would get out of that is that you would have all students in relatively comparable, adequate facilities. That would be a wonderful thing for you to say across your school district, and something a lot of school districts cannot say. You would make fuller use of the new facilities that you have constructed, and you will get some cost effectiveness out of that, because if you continue to fund particularly the small middle school classes by adding additional teachers, that's going to be a budget consideration that's going to be relatively expensive. By looking down the road for that new middle school after the 10 years, you're looking to the future, even beyond the period of the study. The School of Discovery ends up in a better facility, and the worst school that you now have in your district, which is Bennettsville Intermediate, is replaced by a new school, and you will have a wonderful ability at one point in time to say that across your whole school district, all the kids are in very adequate facilities. The weaknesses, coming back, it was mentioned a moment ago in the question, when you start doing something, as I've recommended, there's going to be a discomfort of the relocation of students, and that's a fact. I've never made these kinds of recommendations, seen them implemented, that there weren't people who were not happy with them. The second weakness is you could go in and spend money on the intermediate school. You probably would spend half as much as you would spend to build a new one at least, to bring it up to date, bring it up to code. But you would still have an old building that would be what I would call a Band-Aid school. It still would be that old 50s building with some paint on it. The other disadvantage of what I'm sharing with you is it's not inexpensive. You don't have need for new facilities because you're growing, but you have need for new facilities because of conditions that are just not appropriate for young students, particularly at the intermediate school. When you put all of the things together I've shared with you, upgrading the high school, upgrading the intermediate school for the School of Discovery, building a new intermediate school, you're looking at somewhere between $36 and $40 million in today's cost. And you can't do that as a school district without some type of special consideration, whether it be a bond referendum or some type of alternative funding. Yes, sir.
One quick question. Now, you're saying, in your opinion, that the Bettlesville Intermediate School that we have right now is better suited for the School of Discovery, but not suited for the children that are there now. We need to rebuild, we need to spend money on that, but it is better than the School of Discovery that we have in place now, the building that we have in place now. If we move on that, it's better suited.
Well, there are two or three component parts to that, and that's a good question. One, the School of Discovery, based on who I see it serving, it would be better located in Bennettsville.
You're just talking about location, you're not talking about facility.
Okay, but
right?
then when I come to facilities, there are really actually at least two facility components at the intermediate school, a much older one and that newer one that's up towards the front. I'm saying get out of most of the old part, take the new part, which is still very usable. That won't be a lot of building, turn that into School of Discovery that does not need a lot of building, and use it that way. So, yeah, I'm saying...
The children coming from all over the county would come to the central area easier
Right.
than going to Clive, is what you're saying.
Right, right. But also, what I'm saying, I think the question also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to...
Go ahead.
For the next 10 years. But my obligation, as I felt, was to tell you what I thought as a professional, based on my experience and my knowledge, what I would want you to at least consider. And that's what I've done. So I'm available now or later for, I know you've just gotten the report relatively recently, and you've just heard me make the presentation. At some point in time, if Dr. Tiller wants me to come back and we discuss this some more, great. If you've got some questions you want to feed through her to me, I need to, finally make a recommendation based on all the input I've gotten. If you see on your copy, it says draft. I'm still listening and learning, and there may be something that comes out of this meeting that will cause me to recommend eventually maybe something a little different. But it's your obligation to listen, but it's not your obligation to adopt what I have to say. Eventually, you are the folks responsible. I understand that, and you have to do what's right for kids, but you also have to do what's affordable and right for your communities. Yes, sir.
I've got one more quick question, refresh my memory. On Bennettsville Primary, if I remember correctly, you're pretty happy with the way it is, except for the stuff out back, trailers out back. You're saying that with the decline that we probably will have, that the Bennettsville Primary School is probably in good shape.
It is, if you do two things. If you let that decline occur and you look at some of the special programs you're housing there that could easily be housed at other schools. What's happened is as those special programs and growth have filled in the main building, you've moved your specialty areas outside. Art, music, those kinds of things are outside in portables. Those could all come back in easily within the next 10 years based on the population projections and moving some of those special programs.
Okay, thank you.
Ms.
Yes, ma'am.
Whitman?
You'll have a copy of, you have a copy of this PowerPoint for us in the event we do.
Mr. Toole does.
Okay. Well, because if we do a workshop on facilities, we need this. I would need it. I don't remember all you
You're more
said.
than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Thank
to
you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Stevens.
I think we need to give him a hand.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
If you could just tell us how to raise $36 million, we really think you've earned your fee.
I don't think the garage sale is going to do that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Battle? the strategic plan update.
For the strategic planning update, I just wanted to let the board, remind the board that we met on last week. That was our initial meeting where the task was given to the subcommittees. The subcommittees met within themselves and they started working on the work. So for all of the meetings, and the next one is November 30th. So for all of the meetings that are coming up, it will be where the subcommittees are reporting out what needs to be in the strategic plan, and then it will be brought to you for a vote at the meeting in March.
And we're sorry we couldn't attend. We had another meeting.
We had a
that night,
meeting.
So many of us will be at the next meetings.
Okay. For the testing data, the testing data was just released, so that is the reason that you don't have it in your board packet. I spent all weekend looking at the data. We're all still analyzing it. It's going to take some time to analyze all of it. But for tonight, I do have that I can give to you to take with you. The district results as far as it relates to the ACT Aspire test, and I would just like to point out some things for you to keep in mind, and then I'll await your communication with Dr. Tiller as to when you'd like to hear more about this.
Thank you. You saw in the newspaper some things, so we're interested in your analysis when we get to it.
I would just like for you to consider, as you're looking at this, a couple of things. That I've given you the district test results, and these are where we compare with the state in the category of ready. The new test, ACT Aspire, has 4 categories, and it is in need of support, close, ready, and exceeding. The South Carolina pass is still the same, not met 1, not met 2, met, and it just left me. Exemplary, yes, exemplary. One thing to keep in mind is that the close and the not met 2 are kind of on the same keel. Those are the same type of strides. We do not have for you a band, a range that says that if a child was in from this amount to this amount, they were considered close. We're still waiting on additional data to come down from the State Department of Education. Remember that the ACT Aspire this year was the first year, last school year was the first year that students took that test. It was timed. In the past, our tests have not been timed at all. So that's a learning curve for our students. And we also spent time last year giving them time tests so that they could practice with that. The South Carolina pass this year, 3rd graders did not test in science and social studies, only 4th through 8th grade. So at the end, you have the South Carolina pass results. And the categories for ACT Aspire, we have the English, the math, the reading, and the writing, and then there's a composite score.
Do we actually have the writing? Let me see, it must be on the back.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is not all of the testing data. This is just what I'd like to give to you tonight for you to look at and then give me some direction as to how you'd like for me to proceed.
I'm very interested in the close, in terms of how close some of our kids might have come to,
yes.
I'd be very interested in that.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Madden.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Do you have a, I guess, a thought on why the writing, like grade 5, was so low? Do you have
We're still analyzing, to be honest with you, and this is just the district, so I know that in looking at the test data and the other charts that I've done, that at some schools we have some high points, at some other schools we have some lower points. So at our meeting, we will sit down with the principals and continue to analyze the data, and I can best tell you that when we come back.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dr. Tiller, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Parsons, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I am very pleased this evening to share. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Toole because Mr. Toole really took this project on, and he followed it throughout, and he's continued to follow it. And this deals with the Duke Energy Progress Efficiency Project. And as you know, when we were working on the Blenheim School, we worked very hard to make sure that that school was energy efficient, and we followed a model that Duke Energy proposed for governmental organizations and schools to use to try to save on energy costs. And we received this letter, and it says, "Thank you for participating in Duke Energy Progress Energy Efficiency for Business programs. Enclosed is a check in the amount of $66,271.66 for your business. Progress Energy designed this model to help our commercial, industrial, and governmental customers construct more energy efficient buildings and to give assistance to our customers with existing buildings.
Did Mr. Toole get that for us?
Your participation."
And you too, Dr.
Thank you. And also, I think the board needs a hand for moving forward to make Blenheim a green school because that has helped us. But it goes on to say that your participation is an impressive example of your commitment to fiscal and environmental stewardship. And so, again, thank you so much, Mr. Toole, for staying up with this. And they have let us know that this can be used in any manner that the district sees fit. And a couple of areas that the staff has discussed with me, and that was technology for the high school and also for school discovery, the two that are not as well equipped as others. And so I made copies of that for the board. I also made a copy of the check for you. So
we don't get that very
but
often.
it's
Yeah,
two.
that's wonderful.
Is Wallace going to be a green school? Wallace?
We didn't follow that same model in Wallace. That's not what was followed. It's not
As green.
that same model. That was used, for example, we had those different energy systems.
Right.
Geothermal, state-of-the-art, those systems in Blenheim. The system, which was more expensive, but on the other end, over time, it saved us money, and that's the reason Duke Energy has awarded us and presented us with that check. I had several other things to share with the board this evening, but out of respect for the board's request, I think everything that I have left, I'll just send it out in the mail or whatever, because I don't want to prolong the board meeting.
Okay, thank you.
One question. Well, this is, I'm trying to read this letter. Will it come, is this a continuous, will we get this another next year?
One time.
All right, just asking. All right, this is very good.
All right, we need to go into executive session for the approval of one high school petition.
Madam Chairman, I move we go into executive session to consider one high school petition.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand.
That's all we need.
Mr. Goff?
I'm with you.
Okay, all right.